Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I've got Tracy here. Tracy, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me here today, Peter. Really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I can't wait to get into this conversation and see how we're looking at education differently and what we're doing to change it up. But first off, let's why don't you give the listeners an overview of who you are?
It's a long story, and it's come from Columbus, Ohio, originally. And I also was raised in a salvage yard. So a very different environment growing up. It was very dirty and gritty and actually dangerous at times. But with that, I always said to myself as a young kid, I want to get out of this environment. And even though my family was actually a very, very professional in which how they ran their yard and just how they carried themselves, in general. So I learned a lot about that, but our family was very tight knit and worked together. And my dad, he had passed at a very young age, but before he passed, within the last couple of years, he went to each of the five kids I'm one of, and he said, "Each one of you go to college. Go to college." He had private conversations, just go to college, not knowing that he was going to pass. And he knew he was going to pass, but we didn't know. And so anyway, that was something that was on my mind. And I'm in California today because of him, because he always said, I love California. When he was in the military, he was in the Navy, World War II. He said he wanted to eventually take us all out to California and be in this environment that was year-round, outdoors, bright, sunny, and he just loved it. So that was part of that. And who I am after that is I really worked hard, as many of us do. And my husband and I, we met in high school, but married later on when we were in college at the Ohio State University. And with that, all along while I was in high school and college, I worked at Kroger. So I started at Kroger, and I was always open to working in any environment. Whether they said, hey, we need you to work nighttime stock hours, we need you to be in the produce, whatever department that I was able to work that was not in its separate union, I said, okay, to. And that really was my whole philosophy, because it gave me the opportunity to learn different types of skills and be flexible and adaptable. And it's not really unlike what we did in our family business. And so that's really what helped me, really ground zero in the family business of having that philosophy. And in every company, I was observing everything and acting as if it was my own company. And in each of the companies that I worked, and I really didn't say, after Kroger, I got into the tech industry, started at Micro Center. And, a lot of students, especially, they're not as experienced in their careers, right? So they're trying to figure all of that out and how they can go into a particular career. And for me, I pivoted, and I was just talking to someone about this about 3 or 4 times in my life, pivoted industries. And that's not easy to do, but it's really a mindset. And so when I pivoted to Micro Center, which we weren't even using that term at the time, right? I basically took that retail experience from Kroger and leveraged that in order to get the time in at Micro Center. And I loved every minute of it. At that time, we had 3 months of training. And it was 6 days a week. And again, their training aligned with my own philosophy, and that is learn everything about the business, which I was thrilled with. We were in the warehouse, shipping. We were in the service department, triaging issues that were coming in the service department. We worked in the Macintosh department, the accessory department. And we also worked in the build room in the basement of the building. And ultimately, I was hired to work in what was called at the time the IBM MS-DOS department. and that really led to my knowledge of understanding in the very beginning stages of of the computer industry, which I was, again, thrilled with because it was exciting and new. And for anybody out there who have had challenges, being a female in a tech industry in the early days when there weren't that many females was a challenge, but I always took the high road. And when there were certain things that were coming my way, I didn't acknowledge them. Instead, worked through and just proved on my own merit. And then people usually came around.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, not to say you shouldn't stand up for yourself or call it out, but because I think that is needed as well at points. But I took a different path at that time and it worked out for me. And then I proved myself and was respected and looked at as a leader.
Yeah.
So then I came out here in 1990 and continued my tech industry career with Microsoft and did a lot of things around that. I was only there 2 years, but it was really a fascinating, opportunity. And yes, I did meet Bill Gates. Yes, I did meet Steve Ballmer. I had executive briefings with them, with my clients when they came and spoke. And that was just an experience I'll never forget. And then continued on in a licensing company and then on into Ingram Micro, which I was there for around 7 years and worked as a leader managing a department called Major Accounts. And we managed 25 clients that totaled $1.2 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and all of those roles, again, I kept an open mind in helping the company succeed as well as the client that we were working with, because it was a joint partnership. And I always looked outside of the role in order to make sure that the wheels were turning. If I worked with another department, I made sure that I understood what their needs were too, and continued that philosophy and how what their actions did affected another department yet that maybe I wasn't directly connected with. So that's that kind of philosophy that really helped me succeed. And then I pivoted again to Ernst & Young and worked for them as the human capital executive consultant on the Western region. And I was able to do so because of, or even get that position because of my work at Ingram Micro with the employees of making the department better, a better place to work with regard to not only training, but understanding of how they can, their career path, what that may look like or the possibilities are. And then I ended up 3 years ago, I got into the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Orange County. And I know we've talked before, but that was really fascinating for me to really observe and understand. And we can talk more about that because that's really where I got into education proper in the industry.
There's a couple things I heard there that is pretty amazing. I mean, obviously your value and work ethic all the way through that. I know we're going to touch on that and how do we build that kind of mindset for everybody, youth, right? To be your curiosity and your fearlessness really has taken you amazing places. And we've had that conversation. And thank you for sharing that with the audience. It's very important because of the conversation we're going to have. That's really your why is underneath all that. But I don't want to throw that out there just yet and give people a little bit of time to soak that in. I do want, though, to ask, what kind of student was Tracy in schools? Obviously, in businesses, you learn to soak it all up, right? And then even with your family life and how you saw and was raised that way, to work hard and to see it. What was school like for you?
Well, I was actually raised in parochial schools, both in grade school and high school. And even into college, I did go to 1 year of a Catholic school and then transition to the Ohio State University. So that's sort of the type of institution I was in. I want to lay that groundwork. So there was a lot more structure involved, but I was always a very good student, but I wasn't like the top student. There's always somebody better than you, right? I was a very good student, but it took me a lot to get there. And the reason is because I didn't have, at the time at least, and now I think you grow out of certain things, and I'm well beyond that. But I was At times I couldn't concentrate. I was very distracted in the classroom. I don't know what that was. I don't know what it is. I was never diagnosed with anything, but it was distracting. So I would take my books home, stacks of books, and reread everything in order to get my work done and understand. And I know a lot of people, my husband, for instance, he said he never took a book home.
Me
He
neither.
never had to take it home. But
Yeah.
I had to do that in order to actually absorb and assess and just really comprehend what was happening, what was going on, what was expected of me, and in order to you know succeed. And I was always on honor roll. So I did well. But it took a lot, and I had to close myself off at home in a room that was completely quiet
Hmm.
and focus. And so that was the type of student. My older brothers, I have three older brothers and a sister, and a couple of my brothers are like, "You are just such a great student. Your study skills are superior." And they would tell me this, but inside it was like I was dying because I
Right.
didn't want to spend all this time at home. I really didn't. But I needed to do that in order to succeed.
That's amazing. Yeah, I never took a book home. For some reason, I was able to do it in school. But it's funny as an educator, we'll get to this, and even going into the organization that you represent. But as an educator, you see that, and sometimes teachers, educators ourselves, we get frustrated. We're like, well, why is Tracy not in class, like doing the work? And it just wasn't the place for you. Obviously, you figure that out, and you have enough, I guess you understand this because of the organization that you're running now. So can you tell us a little bit about, the organization that you're running, and what is it all about?
We run, I should say, my co-founder, who's a former Microsoft colleague, Jean-Pierre, and I formed Colina. And Colina is an ed tech company. And we came together because of our love of education and tech. And we hadn't really seen each other for a long time. We had worked together at Microsoft years ago, and then he continued on up at Microsoft Corporate and was in the consulting industry, Microsoft consulting arm, and worked for Microsoft for about 20 years. So we had decided that we wanted to come together because of that love, as I mentioned, of tech and education. However, I was actually at the same time in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. At the same time, we were in this initial conversation of Orange County. And a couple things I observed, because I was trying to figure out, well, what do we want to focus on with this tech and education platform that we wanted to build, or what aspect do we want to approach? Is it a platform or not? And so basically, with the entrepreneurial ecosystem of Orange County, I was observing with my process improvement, my sales marketing, all these things that I did, right, with these top end clients. And I was observing, and couple observations I made. One was that it was highly siloed. And there are all these great resources, but they're highly siloed. And the collaboration at the time was good, but not where it could be. And the second thing is the entrepreneurs themselves are constantly developing non-technical skills, albeit they may be representing a fintech, med tech, or biotech kind of industry or product, right? So they may be in that tech industry, but they're constantly developing. So one, it may be very good at communication, and one may be pretty good, but the key is they're developing it every day because they're exercising what is referred to as that entrepreneurial mindset. And that mindset is not only valuable for a startup, for an entrepreneur who's starting a company, but that mindset is also equally valuable for someone who's in corporate America. And sometimes that's forgotten, because when I was at Microsoft, and that's kind of that's my mindset. Right? That's always been my mindset, but I didn't know it was called that entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. So maybe that's the reason that we all had that. But I had that exposure. But that mindset is very valuable and gets people farther. When I was a leader and in a company, in one of the companies, and I had an employee that had a bad attitude and they had a focus of just within their cubicle walls,
Yeah.
but not really beyond that. And I had another person that is very open to collaboration and adaptability and persevering and doing. Who are you going to pick to move to the next level?
Yeah.
Right? Who are you going to actually promote? And so I think people need to really understand that these non-technical skills, and Udemy, who's a fabulous large company providing educational opportunities for people, as well as LinkedIn Learning, and there's many out there, right? They posted an article focused on changing the name of soft skills to power skills. And I've actually been calling them power skills for 3 years before they came out with that, but I'm so happy they did, because now people are taking a step back and saying, well, maybe these are important. And a couple years ago, when we started this, no one was really focused on it. And then they started, I would say in the first year, after the first year we started this company, I started seeing more articles and postings that were large corporations as well as universities saying, we're going to start training, this is important. And now that COVID happened, where there's more remote and a less in-person social interaction, it's going to be even more valuable to understand.
Yeah.
So we have this platform that is a community-based platform focused on marrying this whole entrepreneurial mindset with a digital community, so that people can be active after hours, after they've met in person. And because even at the entrepreneurial ecosystem here, what people usually do is they will send an email, right, to a group if they're part of a group, and then there's copies and back and forth and back and forth. And many of them don't want to use some of the other popular platforms. They want a proprietary white labeled platform that focuses on their theme, so to speak, right, of what they're doing. And so there's been several opportunities that we are running 12 platforms right now in 3 years. Yeah. And last August, we actually were awarded a grant by the U.S. State Department in collaboration with the U.S. Embassy in Ghana. And the University of Ghana is using our platform at their entrepreneurial hub or center there. And that's just one of many ways that it's being utilized right now.
That's amazing. And I love the growth of this. That mindset is something, in high school as an educator myself is all I'm trying to work through students and different things. And again, it's right in your vision, right? You're looking at that entrepreneurial mindset with the employable skills. We'll just keep going with the power skills.
Yes.
Because we know there's that huge gap, right?
There is a huge gap.
What are the different ways, even with, Ghana or the other, entities that you're working with? How are you, what is your vision on closing that gap even more?
Yeah, it's really about the hybrid model and allowing students to meet the students where they are versus always trying to make people come to us, right? And this is just not me. I don't want to speak just about me, because this is about the partners that I have and the educational partners and business partners alike, where we're coming together, and it's a triangle relationship. It's the businesses, it's the educational institutions, and also the students themselves. And how are we pulling all of this together? And there's an opportunity that we're working on right now, and have been actually. Well, let me talk about what we've worked on. We worked on with the Orange County Community College business and entrepreneurship sector, and that's why it's been focused on entrepreneurship. And I've been at the table with the educators in Orange County many times, and this is their whole vision to bring, and my vision as well. But it's broader than me. And that's why I'm trying to say, that's how I started that bit, right? This is broader than just me. So when you work with different partners and you really understand what their needs are, and you're not working in that silo, that vacuum, that's where you bring a true solution and opportunity that makes a foundational environment for people to learn and be educated in a different way that meets their needs. Some of the ways we're doing that on this platform is we're bringing this platform is a social community. So think sort of like a Facebook-like platform that people can post, they can email within the platform, send messages. They can actually also grab an article of the day that's important with what is happening in the business world or in learning and education, or a trendy industry, let's say, that kind of thing. They can also go back and look at Zoom recordings that we've turned into podcasts or webinars from educators, where last year for the Orange County Community College system, we did 9 virtual events, and they were focused and represented the community college students. In other words, they were highly diverse people that came to the platform, and we recorded these Zoom events from, military vets who are, their sexual orientation isn't, let's say, the norm.
Right.
And I don't care about what the norm is. I'm not saying that, I'm not judging that, but that others may judge. Not, and transgender people, those who are different ethnicities or different backgrounds, and the important part of that is each came through difficult circumstances. They had to overcome many things in their life in order to decide, am I going to let this bother me and go down in a downward spiral, or am I going to uplift myself and surround myself with people that are uplifting and allow myself to become the person that I can be? And all of these people did just that. And they not only were educated in in their respective industry, but some of them have gotten their master's degree, doctorate degrees, and some are in industry, some are in education, some are in their own consulting firms, and each one of them have overcome and succeeded and represented their community of diversity in that way. And I brought them to the table to speak to the California community colleges. This year, we focused a little differently. We focused on the technology, and I reached out to different people in the tech industry to talk about blockchain. The digital marketplace was another, and the last was the metaverse. So we had that as well. So we try to mix it up, and those recordings obviously become a different way to learn.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be in a classroom, right? We also offer over 130 non-technical skills online courses that are can be helpful as an introductory, way to just understand what that means. What does that soft skill mean, and how do I apply it? If they don't have an environment in which they can exercise that, then we encourage them to look to someone in their suite of network, right? Their network of friends and family that exudes that particular non-technical skill. And then that soft skill or power skill. And then ask that person, can you guide me? Can you give me some understanding of how you actually use that skill? And that is a way that we're really reaching out. We also have an opportunity to build a mentoring internship, a full ecosystem for education and businesses that we're in the process right now of proposing. So hopefully that will come to fruition. But if this is done, it will exactly align with what the people that are involved are wanting for their ecosystem.
Very powerful stuff, especially the stories of the individuals who have overcome things. Obviously, as an educator, again, I keep thinking about my own students, right? And when they do connect with people who really resonate with them, maybe their stories are similar, their backgrounds or cultures are similar, and then they see those, and then you're basically building those ecosystems around each individual and creating it's amazing. I have a lot of listeners who are parents and of high schoolish age, maybe a little bit more into the college years, and then a lot of educators and administrators. What do they need to know about connecting with Kalina and everything, and how to move forward if they have some questions?
Well, they can reach out to me at tracy.tanner, that's TRACY.Tanner, TANNER, at kalina.com. And they can call me on my personal cell phone. Hey, I'm available. So it's 714-931-5890. So one of the things that I would, if I could leave any kind of message to any of the educators out there in administration, and many of them I highly respect, because it's a very difficult job, and especially the parents too, is, as I said, that we're trying to meet, our goal is to meet the students where they need to be, or where they are, not where we want them to be. And I would suggest to consider that philosophy when you're building any programs, no matter who you're working with. And one of the things that I noticed, my son is 23 and he's really successful. He graduated last year from college and he's doing really well. However, when he was in high school, many of his high school friends, the parents, whether they're in whatever profession, and I won't name any profession in particular, whatever profession they were in, the unanimous philosophy was, my child's going to do the same profession. And we really need, and you hear that too?
Yep.
Okay. So, and I'm not trying to judge anybody, because that's a natural thing you want your child to do, right? You want your child to grow up, be successful, and you may have been successful, and therefore, or maybe you have a business and you want them to be, take over your legacy or your business or what have you. And I get all of that. But the students, or your child, or the student in the classroom will not be happy long term. They will not be happy long term. Some will. There is a small percentage, absolutely, they would love to do that, but many of them will not be. And that's something that I saw in some of the students and my son's friends, who they were being asked to do the same. And that's a conversation they have to have, and they go through, obviously. And many of them, all of them have turned out great, but I think we need to look at that earlier on, and not pressure, but support and guide. Yeah. And I know I'm getting on a little soapbox here, probably but that's something that really is near and dear to my heart, to help students understand what their skills are and how those skills can be applied back to the skills, right? How the skills can be applied to the different industries and are transferable to many industries. And actually, one young gentleman who is just cracks me up. He says, "Oh, I just saw him not long ago, a friend of ours," and he said, "Mrs. Tanner, I'm in college, third year, and I hadn't seen him for a while." And he says, "I'm studying communication," and I said, I did the same, and do not ever let anyone tell you that that's fluff.
In our previous conversation, you and I are both undergrad communication majors. So it is not. It's an amazing, yes. I mean, it has taken me places where, outside of comfort zones. Totally agree with you. Totally agree.
Right. So don't let anyone tell you that it's fluff. and completely understand, please, that it is so transferable. And that now, especially with the remote working environment and what's happened to us all over the world, these types of skills are in high demand right now.
Yeah, I love the humanistic approach. What you're doing is incredible. Because it is disrupting education. It's changing the way that we do things. It stems all the way back to young Tracy carrying the books home. That's what I love, and I want to thank you for sharing your entire story and your journey today. And obviously, reach out, listeners. I'll put more information in the notes or down there. But Tracy, thank you so much for sharing
You're
your
so welcome,
journey.
Peter.
I appreciate it. And thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time on Disrupt Education.